Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.
On News Hour tonight, menial job workers share experiences on biting cost of living in Abuja. Adamawa State High Court adjourns arraignment of suspended resident electoral commissioner till July 20. President Tinubu seeks lawmakers' approval of 500 billion naira for fuel subsidy palliatives. And on the foreign scene, South Africa police launch manhunt after 6 die in mass shooting. Hello and welcome to News Hour. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Now the news in detail. The fuel subsidy removal and the attendant cost of living crisis has changed the lives of people with gainful employment. Unskilled workers doing menial jobs to survive are worst hit by the current economic realities in the country. In this report, Noel Sampson speaks to menial job workers on how they cope with living in these difficult times.
The cost of essentials like energy and food is rising much faster than average household incomes. These individuals who do menial jobs like hawking wares, cleaning windscreens and traffic find life more difficult since the price of virtually everything has increased.
The work will go there for us. No, they see money like before. No, they see money like before. Like me before, where I hustle like this before, I hustle like 8K, 5K. But now, I hustle like 3K, 35.
We thank God, but it is making our daily cost of living very hectic. It depends. Sometimes we get to sell off everything, and sometimes we don't. Actually, the expenses are still the same, but the transportation fee is very high now. I work here at Pana. I sell sand and cement. Everything has changed, not like before. There is high cost of living. Actually, you make more than you make now. However, some Nigerians are concerned over what these individuals are facing and hope something can be done to change the situation.
I wonder, because if you could affect somebody like we, who think we are already trying to make ourselves better people already, well, how much about them? I wonder, and maybe that is why a lot of things are happening in the country right now.
It's really underwhelming, actually. I don't know what to say because the whole thing is really mind-blowing for me. People are not really finding it easy at all. Many students have actually dropped out of school. Some who have actually gotten admission, they couldn't actually afford to go to school because of the high rate of maybe admission, admission fee and the rest of it, school fees and the rest. I think the cost of living right now is really something else.
They urge the federal government to come up with policies that will make life better for the ordinary person on the street. Noel Sampson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Following the increase of transportation fares by commercial operators, commuters in Lagos are lamenting difficulty of movement to and from place of work. In this report, Victoria Tokolo visits motor parks and bus stops to find out how residents cope with fuel subsidy removal. The report.
Since the announcement by President Tinubu on May 29 that fuel subsidy is gone, life has not been the same as many filling stations increased their pump price across the country as commercial transport operators jerked up fares. At motor parks in Lagos State, many Lagos residents lament the high increase in transport fares, saying what they are spending as transport fares has doubled what they used to pay before now.
Current removal of fuel subsidy, my transport fare now is ×2 and even ×3 of what it used to be before now. And then where I work, there's no increase in salary. Even the so-called federal government has not increased the minimum wage as well, where other companies that come far from abroad to establish here in Nigeria, where they can actually implement their own new salary for their staffs as well. So My salary is more or less like what I use for my transport fare.
It has affected me a great deal, actually, because I spend close, let's say 800, roughly 800 go to and fro, but now I'm spending 1,300, like minimum. It can, all things being equal, standard 1,300. Anything can happen. Maybe you get home late. You know all those our transport people now, they might increase it anytime. So minimum, like all things being equal, now I'm spending like 1,300 instead of 800 to and fro. So it has affected me a great deal. And we are still expected to actually be at work at 8 a.m. every morning. So
some commercial transport operators say they increased fares because a litre of fuel now costs 500 naira at filling stations.
For a moral like this, now if you want to buy for inside your car, before we were buying it 1,200, now we are buying it 4,500, 3,000 plus. That's how you're buying it. And this is not for us again. Like, I don't really understand. We're out of this show.
I can confirm to you that if I want to fuel my car, where I needed to use like 10,000, 15,000, I'm not fueling about times 2 of it, and possibly before a normal average car will be filled to the tank, I think it should be around 30,000, 35,000, and that is a salary of some people. That amount is even a little bit amount on minimum wage. Removal of petroleum subsidy, of course, has created a lot of hardship in the society, but I will not, as a professor, not be there to say it is not something we should not do. It is apt. Maybe if we can, on the short run, withstand the hardship, in the long run, we will be better for it.
The residents appealed to the federal government to increase workers' salary to be able to afford rising cost of living.
President Bola Tinubu has written to the House of Representatives seeking the amendment to the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act to accommodate 500 billion naira for provisions of palliatives for Nigerians. Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, read the President's communication at plenary on Wednesday. He said the request became necessary to enable the government provide palliatives for Nigerians to cushion the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy. He urged the legislators to give his request expeditious consideration and approval to enable his administration provide palliatives for Nigerians. Speaker Abbas, after reading the request, said the House will begin the reconsideration of the President's request at plenary on Thursday.
Request for the amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act. I write to request the approval of the House of Representatives for the amendment of the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act in accordance with the attached. The request has become necessary in order to, among other things, source for funds necessary to provide palliatives to mitigate the effect of the recent removal of fuel subsidy on Nigerians. Thus, the sum of 500 billion naira only has been extracted from the 2022 Supplementary Appropriation Act of 819 billion 536 million 937,815 naira only for the provisions of palliatives to Nigerians to cushion the effects of fuel subsidy removal. While I hope that the House of Representatives will consider this request expeditiously, please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration.
Adamawa State High Court sitting in Yola has adjourned arraignment of the suspended resident electoral commissioner Hudu Ari till July 20. Hudu Ari, bailed for arraignment before the State High Court in Yola on Wednesday, was not in court when the matter was called. Salisu Lawang reports.
The High Court in Abuja restrained the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, and the Attorney General of the Federation from prosecuting or taking any action against the suspended resident electoral commissioner for declaring Aishatu Binani winner of the Adamawa governorship election. When the matter came up at the Adamawa State High Court on Wednesday, counsel for the prosecution, Rotimi Jacobs, informed the court that Hudu had obtained an order restraining them from arraigning him. Rotimi informed the court that they had read on newspaper pages that the defendant had obtained an order restraining both prosecution and the High Court from proceeding with his trial. Jacobs told the court that the offenses preferred against him are serious offenses, but he is seeking protection of another court with concurrent jurisdiction. The presiding judge, Justice Benjamin Manjilawan, held that the State High Court had received the restraining order issued by the court in Abuja and will only act when validity of the order lapses by next week. The prosecution, however, argued that the Supreme Court had made pronouncement on issues of concurrent jurisdiction.
Yes, actually the case came up today for mention, and we appeared in court. We learned SAN, Rotimi Jacobs, appeared for the Federal Republic of Nigeria for mentioning of the case. So in the process, the attention of the learned SAN was drawn to the fact that there is a pending court order restraining INEC from prosecuting the defendant, who is Hudu in this case. So with that, the court was of the opinion that since there is a pending court order, we should wait till the 18th of this month to see the outcome before further steps can be taken.
The lawyer said the electoral offenses the suspended commissioner is facing charges over are clearly within the jurisdiction of the State High Court. Salis Lawan, Trust TV News, Yola.
The Independent National Electoral Commission in Zamfara State has embarked on a review of the 2023 general election in order to improve future polls. The state resident electoral commissioner, Saidu Barbara, told journalists that the essence was to get first-hand information from participants on the successes, challenges and losses recorded in the last elections with a view to prepare to correct them in the 2027 general elections. The report.
In this hall are returning officers, collation and electoral officers, and assistant electoral officers in the 2023 general elections. Also present, management staff of the Independent National Electoral Commissioner, INEC, Zamfara State. They are here to conduct post-review of the 2023 general elections to identify successes, challenges, and losses, and to recommend ways the Commission can improve in the next elections. The Resident Electoral Commissioner, INEC, in Zamfara State, Saidu Barbara, disclosed that the Commission selected the actual participants of the 2023 general elections from each of the 3 senatorial districts, as well as federal and state constituencies, to give real-time information on what transpired in the field during the conduct of the election in Zamfara State.
It's not much, that's enough speaking about the whole country, averaging all experiences and finding solutions to those areas of great challenges.
The participants were shared into groups to brainstorm and come up with the issues that arose during the last general elections in Zamfara State to help the Commission strengthen its preparation for any future elections.
National leadership of the Social Democratic Party has asked President Bola Tinubu to call Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello to order ahead of the November 11 governorship election in the state. Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman reports that the opposition party, which has a candidate in the forthcoming election, accused the Kogi State Governor of masterminding attacks on its campaign office to undermine its growing popularity.
Presenting documentary evidence on a late series of attacks on its candidate Murtala Ajaka, the National Secretary of the party Oluogunlowe says it has become expedient to make the call due to what he described as unwarranted political extremism.
Considering the unabated state-sponsored attacks and series of physical harassments on the candidate of SDP, Alhaji Murtala Yakubu Ajaka, the National Working Committee once again hereby respectfully call on the President of the Federal Republic, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, to address the brewing social tension and the evolving state of anarchy in Kogi State.
Painting the picture of politically motivated attacks on the campaign trail of the Kogi State SDP governorship candidate, his running mate and campaign director Paruka Deju say the state governor is bent at undermining their chances at the election.
The person who led the attack was Dr. Bello himself. There was no proxy. He drove a Mercedes-Benz and crossed the road to prevent Ajaka from passing. And government came out of his car and started raining bullets on Ajaka's car. The last press conference we did here, the pictures of that car was, the pictures of bullets and all that, you saw them here. We managed to escape from the place.
We have it on good authority that in the next couple of days they have procured vehicles that at the moment they are branding with the logo and the pictures of Muri and myself, which their thugs will be using to parade the streets of Kogi State.
On the flip side, the ruling APC in the state also blamed violent attacks on its members and campaign office on the doorsteps of the oppositions. The SDP says it will not relent in bringing to public notice any attempt to suppress political opponents. The political atmosphere in Kogi State ahead of the governorship election is increasingly becoming volatile, with stakeholders calling for necessary intervention. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Moving on to security. Authorities of the Nigerian Army on Wednesday vowed that there would be no amnesty again for bandits terrorizing the northwest zone of the country, insisting that such move had failed in the past. The Chief of Army Staff, Major General Taoreed Lagbaja, said this at Army Headquarters Abuja during a meeting with Zamfara State Governor Dauda Lawal. He called on state governors to give the military free hands to eliminate all the criminal elements. The army chief warned the criminals to flee the country with immediate effect, saying troops under his command will give them close marking as well as block them from entering other parts of the country. The army chief's position is coming on the heels of the recent calls made by the former governor of the state, Sani Erima, that they should dialogue with the bandits. Similarly, Governor of Kaduna State, Uba Sani, has asked for more military support and intervention in tackling the lingering security challenges in southern Kaduna and other troubled parts of the state. Governor Sani made the appeal when he visited the Chief of Army Staff, Major General Taoreed Lagbaja, at the Army headquarters in Abuja. The Nigerian Army on Wednesday advised the Plateau State Governor, Caleb Mutfwang, to immediately intervene and expanded stakeholders meeting in the state as a way of putting an end to the killings in the state. The army said the governor should bring on board traditional rulers, clerics and clergy, opinion leaders, among other stakeholders for the meeting to ensure stability in the state. The Chief of Army Staff, Major General Taoreed Lagbaja, gave this advice at Army Headquarters Abuja when the governor paid him a courtesy visit. Lagbaja said he had earlier requested a situation report from the General Officer commanding Division 3 because he wanted to know the root cause of the killings in the state. Reacting, the governor said he would heed to the advice, saying Nigerians would see the stakeholders in a dialogue in the next few days in order to find permanent solutions to the menace. A combat team from Operation Safe Haven repelled a surprise attack on Wednesday, killing 3 bandits who are believed to be behind the trouble in Mangu local government area of Plateau State. In the course of clearing the ambush, the troops recovered 3 AK-47 rifles, 14 rounds of 7.62 special rounds, 1 motorcycle, and a constabulary police ID card. The troops were responding to a distress call in Mangu local government area when they were ambushed along the road in Mongum Punchit, Mangu. The Commander Operation Safe Haven and General Officer commanding 3 Armored Division, Major General A.E. Abubakar, stressed that the Nigerian Army would continue to discharge of its mandates within the ambits of the law and would continue to be firm, bold, decisive, and just. With the redeployment of his headquarters to Mangu, General Abubakar gave assurances that distress calls would be responded to promptly, as several combat teams had been dispatched to remote areas in the local government for enhanced rapid support response. Still on security, police authorities in Kwara State say the restriction of movement on operations of commercial motorcycles between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. is still in force to combat the scourge of kidnapping and theft in the state. Commissioner of Police Ebun Oluwarotimi Adelesi stated this while addressing journalists at police headquarters Ilorin. She wondered why people should blame the police for trying to flush out criminals in the state, adding that the law has been in existence, though not implemented.
It is not the police that made the pronouncement that they should not move from 9. It's by the state. So we are only supporting the state to ensure that there is peace. So that should not be your problem, because if they do not have any mode of transportation, there's not going to be anything. And funny enough, most of these cultists, do you even realize that they are artisans? So that is it. It's for the protection of the city, the state, the communities, as well as for themselves, not to risk their life. That is why we have to ensure, and it still stands. And I repeat that anyone found after that time, no compromise is to be taken to court straight.
The National Emergency Management Agency on Wednesday received 146 stranded Nigerians from Niamey, Niger Republic. NEMA Coordinator, Kano Territorial Office, Nuruddin Abdullahi, stated this while receiving the returnees at the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport. The returnees arrived at the airport on board B737-400 Sky Mali airline plane with registration number UR-CQX. Abdullahi said the returnees were brought back through a voluntary repatriation program under the care of the International Organization for Migration. He said that the program was meant for distressed persons who left the country in search of greener pastures in various European countries but could not afford to return. Abdullahi advised Nigerian youths to avoid embarking on a dangerous journey abroad in search of greener pastures that may be available at home. The returnees expressed gratitude to IOM and the federal government for their safe return. There was commotion at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja on Tuesday evening as a MAX Air flight to Sokoto developed fault 19 minutes after takeoff and had to make a detour. The flight scheduled to depart in the afternoon but delayed till evening was eventually cancelled after it successfully landed, leaving many passengers stranded. A staff of Media Trust Group, Abdurrahman Umar, who was one of the passengers, reports that passengers protested the cancellation and demanded a refund of their air tickets after 8 hours of delay and subsequent cancellation. Manager of the airline, however, told the stranded passengers that there will be no automatic refund as the incident was not envisaged, advising the passengers to get alternative flights to their destinations.
amma babu jirgin max din da zai ƙara tashi ba wani ba. Let me tell you, wallahi if you leave this place, no flight will go. See, if you leave this place,
no money, no money, no flight. No money, no flight.
What kind of thing I say there's no flight? There is.
You're watching News Hour on Trust TV. Coming up after the break, we look at how media content can promote healthcare. Do stay.
How do they come to Nigeria? They have to come through Niger Republic.
Welcome to News Hour on Trust TV.
The Coalition of Northern Groups, CNG,
Petition followed consultations and meetings.
Hello and welcome to the News Hour on Trust TV. I am
Where do they get what? How do they survive?
Kidnapping is just an extension of catch rustling.
That's great.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining us, you're watching News Hour on Trust TV. A recap of our major stories. We told you that menial job workers share experiences on biting cost of living in Abuja. We also told you that Adamawa State High Court adjourns arraignment of suspended resident electoral commissioner till July 20. Moving to other stories, queries over disbursement of 500 billion naira Development Bank of Nigeria loan to the 6 geopolitical zones by the Buhari administration has surfaced in the Senate, with lawmakers resolving that the matter be reinvestigated. Efforts to bring back the controversial motion by sponsor Ali Ndume suffered a setback last Wednesday as the Senate President Godswill Akpabio stood it down and advised the sponsor to represent it. Ndume had queried the rationale behind the stepping down, noting that the fund was unevenly shared among states. The The report.
During Wednesday's plenary, Senator Ndume raised the motion once again, prompting a divided debate on the matter. While some lawmakers insisted that the disbursement was not favourable to some regions, others reminded them that the loan had criteria to be met.
They have what they call participating financial institutions, that is microfinance banks. So far the bank is using about 64 of them, out of which 60 are in Lagos. 4 only are spread around the other 35 states in the country. And I want to also tell my colleagues that the other developmental finance institutions that they call DFI include Bank of Industry, Bank of Agriculture, Nigeria Export Finance and Import Bank, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, National Economic Reconstruction Fund, Nigeria Infrastructure Development Bank, and NICEL.
Mr. President, the institution that is involved here is a reputable institution. It's an institution that have laws, rules, and principles that is guiding their day-to-day activities. That if Senator Ali Ndume felt so bad about this, then let's go ahead and set up another ad hoc committee to give it a second look.
If you raise 1 billion naira, only 1 billion counterpart will be given for you to be able to access that facility. So this was the reason, and Lagos was able to give that. In fact, the area we are supposed to look at now is the criteria. But as I'm talking to you, 66% of these funds have been paid back. And the bank is only basing their criteria on the basis that you'll be able to repay this loan so that it will be an evolving loan.
According to them, the requirements were not met by some geopolitical zones.
I think we should look into the issue. Why I think we should look into the issue is that there may be recommendations here that can help us in future. At the end, when there's a review or even the report that has been available now by the clerk of the Senate, the report of the former ad hoc committee that was set up.
The Senate therefore resolved to take another look at the matter and report back in 4 weeks.
The present administration will vigorously pursue the Sustainable Development Goals 4 and 5 because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a passionate and committed advocate of women empowerment. Vice President Kashim Shettima gave these assurances on Wednesday when he received at State House Abuja a delegation from the United Nations led by the UN Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed. She was accompanied on the visit by the co-founder Malala Foundation, Malala Yousafzai. Kehinde Amodu reports.
Vice President Shettima has nothing but praise for his 2 august visitors on this Wednesday. He describes Amina Mohammed as a symbol of hope for the African woman, for her resilience, commitment, disposition, and integrity. On the other hand, Malala Yousafzai to him is an icon of hope and change in a despairing world. And to the 2 women, he is giving assurances that President Tinubu will promote girl-child education and gender empowerment in the policies and programs of the federal government. This, he says, is because the president believes that the prosperity, the respect of any society is directly proportional to the way it treats its women folk. The UN Deputy Secretary General, who is also chair of the United Nations Sustainable Development Group, may be flattered by the Vice President's remarks, but is more invested in the progress that can be made in the areas of gender equity and education of girls across the country.
We have a large number of out-of-school children. We know that the quality of education is not what every child should have in this country. And the advocacy to an administration that is coming in that believes in education is an important timing. So her voice, her inspiration, not just to government, but to the rest of society, to governors that we met yesterday, is extremely important as this administration begins its journey.
Girl rights activist Malala Yousafzai is impressed by the progress that has been made in women empowerment in the last 10 years, since the first time she set foot in Nigeria.
I was very lucky that I had the meeting with the Vice President, and he gave us his time, he gave us his support. And our ask here in Nigeria is that government, all states and all party members make a commitment to ensure that every child in Nigeria has access to a complete education, which includes senior secondary education as well, that every child has access to a free and quality education. And the second ask is to ensure that we make the full financial commitment to ensure that no child is left behind in this country.
The federal government has been commended for its efforts in promoting Goals 4 and 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals. These visitors are hoping that these efforts will be improved upon by the new administration. From State House Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Thank you, Kehinde Amodu, for that report. Now, communications and development expert Umaru Pate says media content can effect a change on issues related to maternal health and mindset of policymakers in Nigeria. Pate disclosed this to journalists shortly after a presentation on mass media behavior change and development at the first 1,000 days of a child's life held in Gombe State. Trust TV's Adamu Imam completes the report.
The communication expert, who doubled as the Vice Chancellor of Federal University Kashere, maintained that journalists can make a positive impact in addressing health challenges with the aid of content credibility.
So what can we give him in terms? So it's for the media to prepare our minds for all of this, not just to condemn. Go and do your research and understand.
He also expressed concern about the challenges the media faces while trying to help change the narratives that will make policies and programs of government tilt towards addressing issues affecting the society.
What are some of these issues? Because the internet has democratized access, it has enabled new owners of media to emerge, and it has created platforms that has given competition to our legacy media. So there is this issue or the challenge of funding. The monies that they used to realize from advertising, from sponsorship, are no longer flowing into the regular media organizations. They are not going to the platform. The big media, giant techs are taking the monies. And then the smaller bloggers and others are also cornering. So the chunk that is going to the regular media is negligible.
He further said the role of the media extends to behavioral change and people's towards healthy practices, as well as ensure the safety of a child with their mothers from the day of conception to the second birthday of a child. Adami Imam, Trust TV News, Gombe.
Victims of last week's flood disaster in Katsina City have received relief materials from the state government. The relief materials were donated to the victims through the State Emergency Management Agency, SEMA. Abdullahi Ahmadi witnessed the presentation of the relief materials and now reports.
The relief materials include food items, clothing materials, mattresses, buckets, detergents and water filters, among many others. The state government said it is planning more support and assistance to the affected communities.
These relief materials are donated to about 3,000 victims of last week's flood disasters as an immediate intervention to cushion the effects and hardship they have been subjected to. The Dikorada administration is planning to give mega support to the victims, but we should avoid doing anything that could trigger flooding.
Some government officials made an undisclosed financial donation to the woman who lost her child to the disaster. Speakers at the presentation appealed to residents of the affected communities to stop building houses on waterways and dumping refuse inside drainages. I want the recipients of this donation not to look at it as compensation to what they lost, but as a concern to their plight. Kindly help the government by avoiding anything that could endanger your lives and that of your precious God-given children.
Have a prompt action on any disaster that has happened in Tunisia. We don't pray for it, but it happens. Emergencies happen at any time. So look at this one. Within 6 hours of happening, this flood disaster that has happened within the metropolis of Katsina, action has been taken.
Katsina local government is presently working with the office of the district and other ward heads to make an effective sensitization and collect data of those affected and the level of damage in all the affected households, with a view to complementing the state government. Government is also concerned about the effects of the flood on the affected people, warning that they should always boil and treat water before drinking to prevent outbreak of avoidable diseases. The Korada administration also called on people of the affected communities to consider relocating to safer places to live a decent lives devoid of flood disasters. Abdullahi Ismayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Katsina state government has commenced staff audits to determine the genuine number of its workforce in line with Governor Dikko Umar Rada's request to reform the civil service. Abdullahi Ahmadi reports again that the staff audits exercise is to, among other things, ensure proper placement of civil servants for effective service delivery. His report.
Labor unions in the state welcomed the idea of staff audit exercise as it is meant to reposition the service to reclaim its rightful place and conform with global best practices. The labor unions and their affiliates are not only supporting the government on the staff audit, but also formed part of the teams conducting the exercise. The Katsina State Head of Civil Service, Usman Isiaku, said that the exercise is not meant to hunt anyone, but to achieve a productive civil service that could guarantee an accelerated development.
Whenever government directed a worker to do or to follow certain procedure, they should do that so that no one will be omitted from the exercise. And from the turnout that I just witnessed is something which is commendable. In fact, I commend workers of Katsina State for cooperating with the government for this exercise, and I'm looking forward to see similar cooperation for other activities that will be coming up in the maybe coming months.
The Rada administration had conducted examinations on oral interviews for permanent secretaries and other directors. The secretary to the government of the state, Ahmad Dangiwa, has also explained that the exercise is aimed at attaining a credible civil service.
We promise that we want to make sure that anybody who is becoming permanent secretary should be somebody who is very capable, who can deliver, somebody who got to the permanent secretary not through favor or through whatever. So we have all the permanent secretaries that are up to 40 of them, and the directors that are waiting to be permanent secretaries, there are over 200 of them. So it's so difficult for him now to choose from the 200 and make them from the directors and make them permanent secretaries. And if you do that, somebody will say that there's a lot of favoritism. That's why I say that the only way to be fair and just is let there be.
The governor had earlier promised people of Katsina State that his administration will reform the civil service to have a formidable army of brains that can bring about the desirous socio-economic growth they have been Yanin 4. Abdullahi Izmayamadi, Trust Television News, Katana.
The Corporate Affairs Commission says registered companies that fail to update beneficial ownership information will be classified inactive and will face a daily penalty for non-compliance. Registrar General of CAC, Garba Abubakar, said this during a training workshop on how to properly use the beneficial ownership register. Chamunda Bang reports.
The Beneficial Ownership Register was launched by CAC in May to curb corrupt practices and prevent illicit financial flows into the country. Keeping in line with the fight against corruption, the Corporate Affairs Commission is further emphasizing the importance of the Beneficial Ownership Register, which allows members of the public to have access to the names of all owners, board members, and directors of all registered companies. Illicit financial crimes have cost Nigeria a yearly loss of $18 billion, with a large percentage of these crimes being carried out by shell companies. In order to ensure transparency and accountability, CAC has encouraged companies to update their ownership information.
What the law says is, if you are a beneficial owner of any company or limited liability partnership, you have to disclose the information to the company within 30 days of qualifying as a beneficial owner or a person who's living in control. And the company has to file this information with the CAC within 7 days. Default in making this filing with the CAC attracts a daily default penalty. Depends on the nature of the company, whether a company other than small company, whether it's a small company. And the penalty will run until the day the filing is made. So if you are in default for 1 year, you will have a daily default penalty, which is punitive, which is about 10,000 naira for every day, for as long as the default lasted. So this is what we are explaining, that it helps to actually comply.
Abubakar encouraged all sector regulators to work with the CAC to ensure that all businesses under their purview are registered with the CAC, insisting that there will be consequences for non-compliance.
They have to comply because the Commission will have zero tolerance for non-compliance. Apart from the penalty, we are compiling a list of companies that are not up to date in annual return filings. And very soon we are going to strike them off from the register. And the consequence of striking off from the register is any asset or any property you hold in the name of that company will be vested in the government because it's like a lost property. So until you go to court, to ask for the name to be reinstated, for as long as that company remains struck off, you will not be able to access your funds in the bank. You will not be able to do any contract. You will not be able to enter into any business relationship. So very soon we'll strike off the first 100,000 companies, and after 1 month we'll do the next 100,000. And these are companies that are not up to date, that have not filed annual returns in the last 10 years.
The Registrar General said the move to strike non-compliant and inactive companies from the register will begin by the end of July after due notice has been given to the owners, noting that the Beneficial Ownership Register will help to increase investment in the country and save Nigeria massive losses brought on by illicit financial crimes. Chamun Dabeng, Trust TV News, Abuja.
You're still watching News Hour on Trust TV. The news will return shortly. Welcome back. Still ahead, the remains of Kano's prominent retired civil servant, teacher and banker Malam Imamu Galadanchi has been laid to rest. The Murshid of National Mosque and former Nigeria's ambassador to Saudi Arabia, Professor Said Galadanchi, led the funeral prayers at Kano Emir's Palace. The late Galadanchi died in London last week. The Sultan of Sokoto, Abubakar Saad Abubakar, as well as emirs of Kano and Bichi were among mourners that witnessed the prayers. The late Galadanchi was described as a consummate public servant who had impacted on the lives of many in Kano and beyond.
It's very painful to me because he was the one who employed me to teach Hausa in the school. Many of the people you will see here were students under his leadership. He was a very honest person, very patient, very enterprising, and he had good relationship with almost every lecturer. He was our mentor, and it's a great loss not only to Kano but to Nigeria.
My special condolence to his immediate family and to all of us from Kano and to all Nigerians. We really have to mourn this great loss. We will miss him because of the wisdom and the humility that he emits, you know, and we all learn from that. May Almighty grant him Al-Jannah Firdausi.
The Senate leadership sends a message of goodwill to President Bola Tinubu on his emergence as chairman of the Economic Community of West African States. The congratulatory message followed resolution passed by the lawmakers after deliberation on a motion sponsored by the Deputy Senate President of the Senate, Jibrin Barrow. The report.
Presented a motion on the floor of the Senate on Wednesday, Senator Barrow said Tinubu's emergence as ECOWAS chairman in Guinea-Bissau reaffirms Nigeria's leadership role on the African continent in general and sub-region in particular.
Since the establishment of ECOWAS in 1975, Nigeria has played key leadership roles, particularly in the promotion of sub-regional security, defense of democracy and human rights, economic integration, and collective response to security within the sub-region. And ECOWAS is even better placed under the chairmanship of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, in the discharge of the above mandates, among others.
Other senators who supported the motion facilitated with all Nigerians, friends and allies of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the privileged position of chairman of ECOWAS cinched by President Tinubu.
Mr. President, one way that this Senate and indeed the National Assembly will help Mr. President lead the ECOWAS is through ECOWAS Parliament. We have the Parliament, and I'm sure you will soon reconstitute the membership of the Parliament.
For me, sir, being elected as president is wonderful, but we also know that these are more of, they rotate from time to time. What I found exciting and worth commending is not the fact of his election. It is the boldness with which he spoke, the confidence with which he spoke, and denounced the idea of one after the other coup plotters infiltrated to the sub-region.
I congratulate President Tinubu on this occasion, but urge him to go further. We're expecting that very soon he will be chairman of AU, so that we can use that position to address the issue of Nigerians living in other countries.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, expressed hope that President Tinubu's emergence will create an opportunity to address the ill treatment meted on Nigerians in most of the West African countries.
I had pointed out that once we pass through the door into the chambers, we drop the issue of minority and otherwise. We are all senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and that is why there is a unanimity of opinions here, because the honor done to Mr. President is an honor done to the entirety of Nigerians and to all of us.
The Senate further urged member countries and their parliaments to congratulate Nigeria's president for achieving the new feat at the recently concluded 63rd Ordinary Section of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of ECOWAS held in Bissau, capital of Republic of Guinea-Bissau.
Away from Nigeria, a mass shooting in South Africa has left 6 people dead and 4 wounded when 3 men entered the yard of a home and opened fire. The shootings happened on Tuesday night in the township of Kwambule, near the town of Kariega in the Eastern Cape province. The suspects have not been arrested and a search is underway, police said on Wednesday. South Africa has one of the highest homicide rates in the world, and at least 2,629 people were killed with a firearm in the first 3 months of this year, according to official crime statistics. Kidnapping for ransom and the targeted killing of celebrities have also been rising in South Africa. The police said 5 men and a woman were killed in Tuesday's shooting, and a woman was among the wounded. The police also said the motive for the shooting is unclear. Last year, 16 people were killed in the township of Soweto in Johannesburg after numerous gunmen shot at people at a bar. 8 people were fatally shot at a birthday party in the same Eastern Cape province in January. A child was among 10 members of the same family killed at a house in April. In sports, Cristiano Ronaldo's club Al Nassr has been sanctioned by FIFA over a transfer issue involving Super Eagles captain Ahmed Musa. Al Nassr has been banned from registering new players going into the new Saudi Arabia Professional League season. Al Nassr have failed to pay Leicester City the money they owe them over Musa's transfer. Musa linked up with Al Nassr in a well-celebrated move in 2018 after impressing them at the World Cup in Russia. Al Nassr paid Leicester City 16.5 million euros to secure the services of Musa. The former Saudi Pro League champions are, however, yet to pay the add-ons despite the Court of Arbitration for Sports ruling. Al Nassr were ordered to pay the Foxes 460,000 euros in performance-related add-ons. The Saudi Arabian giants' failure to obey CAS ruling has forced FIFA to ban them from registering new players ahead of the new season. And with that, we've come to the end of News Hour on Trust TV. Don't forget to follow us across all our social media platforms. I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Thanks for watching.
From the Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.